He ditched the fucking call and he never came back, like a little fucking snaky coward.
Both Michael Shellenberger and Destiny appeared on Lauren Chen's live stream. Destiny was very confrontational and released a follow-up video entitled "The Climate Change Denier That Ran from Destiny Mid-Debate." You wouldn't know it from a title like that, but I think Destiny embarrassed himself. And just to be clear, I really like Destiny, but he was completely wrong here, and I want to break it down. So, who is Michael Shellenberger? Despite Destiny's name-calling, he's not a climate change denier. He might be better described as a climate change skeptic. He acknowledges the globe is warming by human influence, but is also skeptical of some of the alarmism that we've seen in recent years with regards to climate change. Just to show you how pervasive climate change alarmism is, let's take a look at some examples. Here's a now deleted tweet from Greta Thunberg, a top climate scientist who is warning that climate change will wipe out all of humanity unless we stop using fossil fuels over the next 5 years. I understand why she deleted this, because it's complete nonsense. Or Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez claiming that the world will end in 12 years if climate change is not addressed. After people criticized her for this nonsense remark, she went on to say, "You'd have to have the social intelligence of a sea sponge to think it's literal." But evidently, 67% of Democrats do have the intelligence of a sea sponge because they believe in the 12-year figure. And this alarmism is not without consequence. 1 in 5 children loses sleep having nightmares about climate change. And a significant amount of young people are afraid to have children as they might contribute to the quote-unquote apocalypse. Shellenberger and people like him become a necessary countervail against this climate alarmism. I hope that gives you a bit of context of who Shellenberger is. And now we can look at the Destiny clip.
And I think a similar number said that making energy cheap was a higher priority than climate change. So yeah, I think, Lauren, in answer to your question, I would say probably 2/3 of the public would like to see cheap energy as the priority. It's probably always been that way. Those numbers don't tend to change very much. And then there's just a hardcore 1/3 that, really thinks that climate change threatens human extinction, which it simply does not, and there's no science for that. But I think energy is a big part of the story. If you kind of think the 2 big issues in this year's elections are crime and inflation.
Aren't there a lot of places that are getting like really hot and reporting like record temperatures and stuff, or is that?
I'd just like to pause here so you can remember what Shellenberger's initial claim is that Destiny seems to take issue with.
It really thinks that climate change threatens human extinction, which it simply does not, and there's no science for that.
That's Shellenberger's claim, that human existence is not threatened by climate change. He didn't say climate change isn't real.
Aren't there a lot of places that are getting like really hot and reporting like record temperatures and stuff?
And I think Destiny is already confused because he's replying that there are record temperatures. Okay, but are they enough to threaten human existence?
Definitely climate change. So in climate change, we know is causing greater temperature extremes.
There. He literally said climate change is causing more heat extremes. So it's bizarre that Destiny accuses him of being a climate change denier.
Definitely climate change. So in climate change, we know is causing greater temperature extremes, greater precipitation, and heat waves globally, though not necessarily in the United States. I mean, we have had warmer temperatures over the last 50 years, but the worst heat waves in the United States on record were in the 30s.
Well, I think it's not just a matter of having like a couple days or a single heat wave. I think it's average temperatures like over time have been like dramatically increasing in the United States. Like there might have been in the 30s like a really big heat wave, but in terms of like taking like the averages for all these temperatures, they've been increasing pretty significantly over the past 10 years, haven't they? Even in the United States?
He already said that average temperatures were increasing. And I think this is where the confusion stems from. Destiny thinks his claim is that temperatures are not rising. But as you'll remember, the claim was
climate change threatens human extinction, which it simply does not, and there's no science for that.
The point about having worse heat waves in the 1930s is that we survived them.
I mean, global temperatures are definitely increasing, and there's been more heat waves since the mid-century. But like I said, the worst heat waves were pre-1950s. So global temperatures are definitely increasing.
Shellenberger isn't a very good climate change denier, since he's just openly acknowledging that the climate is changing.
You can see one of the slides there. There it is. Keep going a little bit. I think it's after the hurricanes. There it is. So that's just the heat wave magnitude. I think somebody was saying, what about the averages? And on the right hand side, you can see the heat wave magnitude over time. And in fact, you see a small increase. Sometimes people just cherry pick, so they go from 2000. But what's amazing?
Why would we do? Just curious, as a data person, maybe you can answer this question. Why would you do the trends in heat waves instead of the average global surface temperature? And how is a heat wave being measured in this particular thing?
Destiny. He's not claiming that global average temperatures aren't rising. He just told you that.
Global temperatures are definitely increasing. Well, you can do. I mean, if you go back up to the very top, I mean, in the beginning of I assume that most people know that the planet has gotten 1.15 degrees warmer since pre-industrial temperatures. So I say that at the very top.
How many times does he have to tell Destiny that he knows the climate is getting warmer? Destiny just doesn't understand.
But this is
one of the things that I'm curious about is, so for instance, if we define a heat wave as an aberration from the norm temperature or whatever, it seems to me that if there was a warming of the global temperature, that a heat wave would become less possible because it would require a greater increase, a greater delta V of energy in order to actually cause a heat wave, right? Like, it could be the case that if the average temperature was 70 degrees, having the temperature rise to 85 would be like a heat wave. But if the average temperature went up to 75, maybe the temperature would have to be even higher for it to be considered a heat wave. I just think measuring in heat waves it seems like a really interesting way to me to measure the data here. I don't know why you would do that.
Yes, Destiny. Heat waves would be a bad way to measure climate change. But that's not what he's doing. He's trying to show you that climate change doesn't threaten human existence, because that was his original claim. If the USA has already experienced worse heat waves than what we see today, then surely we're not even close to extinction.
And then also keep in mind too, when you say the average surface temperature increase of 1.15 degrees Celsius, it's always said that way as a way to downplay the increase in temperature. But
what the actual fuck? Everyone, literally everyone, uses average global temperature to measure climate change, including the United Nations and the IPCC. What are you meant to do if not average global temperature? It's not a way to downplay climate change. And you used it earlier.
But in terms of taking the averages for all of the temperatures, they've been increasing pretty significantly over the past 10 years, haven't they? Even in the United States. At 1.15C, that's not spread evenly across the entire globe, right? This is going to be unevenly distributed in different areas of the country.
Congratulations, Destiny. You know what an average is.
Well, first of all, when people point out that the world has gotten 1.15 degrees centigrade warmer since pre-industrial temperatures, that's not a way to downplay climate change. That's just what the best available science shows. So
exactly.
There's some people that want to see temperatures go no higher than 1.5. There's some people that say 2 or whatever, but it's not a way to downplay anything. It's just what the facts are. And then in terms of the heat wave frequency and magnitude, I mean, by the way, this is taken from the U.S. Global Change Research Program.
He's not responding at all. He's like a literal
Fourth
robot.
National Climate Assessment. So this is not my data.
So Destiny starts being puerile. Shellenberger drops from the call later on, ostensibly because he had a dinner, according to Lauren Chen. But Destiny thinks it's a win because he owned him by completely misunderstanding his point.
Oh no, did the journalist leave? I had so many questions. Oh God, no, he left.
Ambiguous as to which precincts are reporting when.
Dude, he cherry-picked so hard from this fucking website.
Judgment. Here in Luzerne,
I think that website that he linked was his own. He cherry-picked graphs so fucking hard. Why didn't he talk about the coldest temperature days rising and rising?
Shellenberger already said 1,000,000 times that the average global temperature is rising. We can obviously extrapolate from that the coldest temperature days are rising and rising. Maybe Destiny doesn't understand averages.
Oh, this is the guy that claimed to be a journalist that studied climate shit,
who I started to call out on his complete and total misrepresentation and selective displaying of graphs. And then he ditched the fucking call and he never came back, like a little fucking snaky coward.
I don't know if Destiny genuinely still doesn't know what happened in this conversation, but it really isn't what he's implying.
And that guy was saying something like, I know that climate change isn't real because the duration of the average heat wave is the same now as it was in 1940.
Really? Is that what happened, Destiny? Let's go back and watch the original claim one more time.
And then there's just a hardcore 1/3 that, really thinks that climate change threatens human extinction, which it simply does not, and there's no science for that. But I think energy is a big part of the story if you kind of think the two big issues in this year's elections are crime and inflation.
Aren't there a lot of
Energy
places that
is-
are getting like really hot and reporting like record temperatures and stuff? Or is that... And that guy was saying something like, I know that climate change isn't real.
Global temperatures are definitely increasing.
It was like the weirdest... like, why wouldn't you just go by like increase in average surface temp? Like, what a weird way to measure... what a weird way to measure climate change.
I said it already, but he wasn't using heat waves to measure global temperature.
And I also read more after stream because I was curious because I looked up some shit and I didn't know this either because I'm a fucking idiot.
Well, you said it, not me.
The time period that he was comparing to, what our heat wave duration or whatever is like now, whatever the time period that we're at now, was the same as the fucking Dust Bowl in the 30s. And I'm like, wait a second. The Dust Bowl was brought on by a ton of man-made problems, right? There was a whole bunch of really bad farming processes that we were going through, and they were fucking up a lot of the land. And they were causing like weird storms, I think like dust storms, fucking temperature fuck-ups, like a whole bunch of really bad shit was happening. And your go-to to say that we don't have a problem right now was that we are like through climate at the same place now that we were during the fucking Dust Bowl.
It's not that there isn't a problem or that climate change isn't happening. It's that humanity won't go extinct. That was the original claim. If you think humanity is on the way to extinction, then the fact that we've already survived worse circumstances in recent memory is pretty relevant.
Fuck me though, but what a horrible point for him to bring up. If I ever debate someone again and like, oh, well, like we're fine, like the climate was just like this in the 30s. It's like in the 30s, Ninja, during the fucking Dust Bowl, that's what you want to compare shit to? And you're gonna say that's okay?
This makes me think that Destiny is being dishonest rather than ignorant. First he was claiming that Shellenberger was arguing that climate change just isn't real. Now he's claiming Shellenberger was saying that everything is okay, but that's not what he said. He said that humanity wasn't going extinct.
We don't have a Dust Bowl right now. This is just normal weather. Like, yeah, fuck me, fuck that guy. What a slimy fuck.
Like I said, I do like Destiny, but he's completely in the wrong, and I actually think Shellenberger deserves an apology.